My name is Soma Miller. I am the founder of The Essential Man, and I'd like to welcome a very special guest that is a friend, a mentor, and a brother of mine that I've done some work with in the past and deeply respect his voice in the world, what he's bringing for the sake of conscious masculinity. Destin Gerek is a globally recognized leading voice in masculinity, sexuality, and personal empowerment. He is the founder and CEO of the Evolved Masculine, a pioneering coaching and training company for men, and author of his brand new best-selling book, The Evolved Masculine, Be the Man the World Needs and the One She Craves. Destin is also an international speaker and host of the podcast, The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. His innovative lens is the result of more than 20 years of academic rigor and direct study, including 7 formative years traveling the world, living and teaching as his provocative alter ego, the erotic rock star. Destin has taken the most potent aspects of his bold life experimentation and integrated it into his iconic body of work, directly supporting thousands of men to have better sex, deeper connections to their masculine power, women, and themselves. So thank you so much, Destin, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I hope that your message can reach a lot of men, because I know it's a potent one.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that I've known you, Soma, now for 5 years, somewhere in there, and maybe 6. And it's really been an honor and privilege to witness your own journey as you have shown up so clearly committed to walking this path. And then seeing you first really dive so deep into your own developmental process, and then increasingly as well into leadership, and seeing you own that role and being in such deep service to so many other men, really has been inspiring. Well done, man.
Thank you. Thanks for seeing that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'd love to dive into your book a little bit. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm really curious. I've seen you post a little bit about it on Facebook, and there it is in reverse.
Well, since we're speaking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I hear, it sounds like you're sharing a lot of very personal, intimate experiences, and kind of an edge to be putting yourself out there in that way. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of what I did with writing the book was challenge myself with, okay, what do I not want to share? uh, and it was hard. Like it was not an easy process to write. Um, I had to really like dig into the deepest, darkest, most uncomfortable parts of myself and my life, and I would just tell myself, let me just I don't have to publish it, I just have to write it, just get it down on paper. I can decide afterwards. But of course, once it was down on paper, I had to move forward with it.
Yeah.
But really, this is rooted in some of the same things that I know that you and I both share as part of this path. It's not about being fearless, like not having fear. Um, it's just having a willingness to not allow fear to make the decisions for you, and to have that willingness to do that which is uncomfortable. A lot of it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful example of it. I mean, I know stepping into this role, more of leadership role in my own life and with this business, that's a consistent edge that I'm working, is to ride that place where I want to close down out of fear, because I don't want to expose myself in certain ways. And I need to continuously work with that fear and welcome it and listen to it, because I feel like it's kind of a teacher in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that one of the challenges that we've had as men is that a lot of the men who have been held up to us as role models or what have you have felt untouchable. It's like, yeah, good for you, nice for you and everything, but like I'm fucked up. Like I've had this problem. I come from this type of a family. I've made these mistakes. I mean, good for you, but I'm stuck over here. And I really wanted to showcase whatever your flaw is, whatever big challenge you've had. Uh, yeah, I've probably had it too. And it's not about having a flawless life. It's about how do you navigate those challenges and your own mistakes? How do you show up in the face of them? And more than anything, that's a commitment and willingness to just keep showing up, to just uh, maintain that commitment to growth, to your own evolution and doing better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think we are deeply conditioned, especially as men, to kind of have this persona that we wear or mask, and it's we try to present the best parts of ourselves to the world, and really there's a lack of humanness to that I think is really something we're craving in this modern day, especially in this world of social media
I
where
was gonna say, especially Facebook and
yeah, I know it's
Instagram,
funny,
like
but
it's
kind of ironic, right, that we're
I
broadcasting
use
on
I
here.
use the phrase I think in the introduction about if you were just perfect like me, you could have, or if you just did everything that I said, you would have that perfect Instagrammable life,
Yeah.
and and like I honestly think it's toxic. I think that it's very harmful for us, and I know how difficult my path has been. I know the darkness that I've faced and the struggles that I still um, deal with. And I also know that I've created a pretty extraordinary life. I also know that perhaps against all odds, I've become a man that I'm very proud of being.
Mhm.
And not everyone can easily like say that and stand in that. And you know, I want more men to be able to. And so a lot of this book is look. I kind of view it as living on the edge between self-help and memoir. The book, like, it's very personal story driven, but really all about you, the reader. And every chapter ends with questions for you as the reader for like, how do you like reflect on this, like how do you take this into your own life, and really it's divided into 54 short chapters so that you could take it in the bathroom with you and randomly pick a chapter if you want to, though of course it's best to go beginning then, but
That's cool.
um,
I like that. You can, it's almost like Oracle like in a way.
totally, totally. And I love books like that. So I wanted it to have that element. But I mean, it's definitely laid out in a sequential manner.
Hmm.
So if you ask me, the ideal would be to do both. But
Hmm.
your book, just pick it up. You could get it right now. Decide what's best for you. But the point being, I want my hope and the experience I've heard so far is that you can see yourself in these stories. That despite my crazy over the top life that I've lived in my erotic rock star years and these things that hopefully would just be entertaining to you, that my focus was on, despite the certain unique aspects to the stories, there's also a universal quality that you can really like see yourself in and
Hmm.
see possibility for yourself that maybe you didn't see before. And if the book can make your life and your path easier, well, then it was worth it. That's why I did it.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to share a little bit with the audience about the erotic rock star. Like what led you to take on that persona, and what did you learn from it?
Why I put it down?
Yeah. So you put it down at a certain point, right? You decided to move
I
beyond.
did, and I've also come to realize, especially with the writing of the book, that that the erotic rock star part of myself will always be part of me at the same time. Um, it's no longer the root of my identity, but exists within me. So, um, why? Been talking about this so much lately.
I mean, if you're bored of talking
No,
about
no, no, no. It's not. It's not that. So my high school sweetheart was raped on her 15th birthday, right before we met. I was the first person she told. I was 16. I wasn't exactly emotionally equipped to handle that well. Um, we ended up being together for the next few years, and it had massive impact on me. Massive impact on her, obviously. That we're talking about more and more, but something that we haven't yet really been speaking about in our society is like if we have an epidemic of sexual trauma, especially on women, though not entirely, um, we need to like recognize that, own that, and figure out like what do we do about this. But and also every one of these, well, most of these women end up with male partners um, who don't have any sort of a roadmap to how do I be with a woman who's carrying sexual trauma, and a recognition that actually that is going to affect your entire relationship. And if you're, if you're dating ongoing from somewhere in your teens perhaps or early 20s into whenever whenever you stop that, chances are good that you're going to end up on a date with or in relationship with a woman who's carrying a sexual trauma. Um, and so those stories are not really spoken about. Like, what is that experience like for a man? So I do share a fair amount of this from the perspective of a man who's been with a lot of women and almost exclusively women who have some form of sexual trauma in their past. So I took on the message at a young age, in my late teens, that men are dangerous, especially men's sexuality. And as a boy on the cusp of becoming a man, that had pretty harmful consequences, taking in that belief. And it took me 10 years, really, until my late 20s before I recognized that I think this has kind of been messing me up. And I need to do something about it. And so, given that belief system, the question that I was trying to answer is what does healthy male masculine sexuality look like? And can one be sexually empowered as a man and be, heart-centered, compassionate, love women, not just love to fuck them, but love, actually love women, and have both of those parts. And when I looked around for models for that, I felt like I was coming up empty-handed. And so I challenged myself with, okay, if I'm not finding the role model that I'm looking for, then what would it look like for me to become the role model that I wish that I had? And that's really my challenge for you watching this is what would it be like for you to become the role model that you wish that you had?
Mm.
Because other men, certainly younger men, are looking, whether consciously looking or just looking around. They're in need of strong, positive, healthy, masculine role models.
I love that. That's powerful. You actually had to embody the man that you needed for yourself in order to learn from.
So, because I felt like I was in the middle of a forest with a machete and no clear path, I made mistakes along the way. Without a doubt, I made mistakes along the way. And I did my best to learn from them as quickly as I can. And certainly when it was time for the erotic rockstar years, that chapter to come to a close, and sometime shortly after this new rebirth as this founder of the evolved masculine, it was really taking the best of what I learned as the erotic rockstar with the things that I really could only learn in hindsight, the things I could see a lot clearer and better when I was no longer in it. And now, of course, being a husband and father adds new layers of perspective that I certainly didn't have at that time.
Yeah, that's great. So if you have this business, this brand, the Evolved Masculine, and that's the title of your book as well. What how would you define the Evolved Masculine?
Yeah. I need to get better at a pithier response to this
We
question
don't
because it
have to
does
be
come up a
pithy
lot.
on this. I think we have time for you to
Yeah, that's
elaborate.
why I like these long form interviews. Um, you know, we have gotten a very clear message over the past several years, if not a bit longer than that, particularly from women, that some of our notions of masculinity and what we're supposed to be as men are not working for them. And the truth is, they probably haven't been working for women for quite a long time. It's just women have come to a point of their own empowerment and ownership of their voice that they're able to communicate very clearly and draw a very clear line in the sand of enough, no more. But this has left a lot of men confused of, okay, if not that, then what? That's a big part of why I created the Evolved Masculine, so that, I mean, like you with the Essential Man. So it's not, aside from what not to do and what not to be, here's some healthy models of what is possible and something to be inspired by, not just try to get away from. Uh, so the Evolved Masculine, as I see him, is grounded, rooted, solid in himself. He's internally validated, meaning he's not seeking validation from others around him anymore, whether through his bros, people online, women, through attention or sex. But he knows who he is, and he's solid in that note. He could stand in the midst of a bunch of naysayers, and he knows his truth. He owns his sexuality. He integrates that sexuality, so it's not something that's repressed or suppressed, nor is it something that is running the show, but it's integrated into the whole of who he is, mind, body, and spirit. He knows his fantasies and his desires, and he can choose what's best for himself and those around him in the moment. He claims his power and forms right relationship to that power. He's neither afraid of power, disempowering himself for fear of judgment or what other people think, or afraid that he's going to do something to harm somebody, but nor is, once again, is it like an addiction to power or a need for power, a proving of power, or trying to prove power of self through relation to others, power over others. That's old paradigm shit we don't need. This is the power that's rooted from within, that power that as he sinks into it more and more deeply, it actually only inspires others to rise up. That that power that is about the deepest expression of your soul's essence coming most fully into being. He's connected to his heart. He loves freely and fiercely. He's not afraid to love, but he's also not afraid to be loved. And he knows that he is worthy of love. He is a man of truth, integrity, and authenticity. He says what he means and means what he says. His words have a weight and power to them because he knows, and others know around him via lived experience, that when he says something, that's just going to happen. And he's also able to communicate his desires, his fears, his boundaries, not walling off, keeping things out simply due to fear, but nor just allowing his own boundaries to be trampled over or trampling over his own boundaries. He's sovereign. And he has cultivated a clear intellect as well as an ability to still his mind and receive the intuition. And lastly, he's formed his own unique connection to spirituality, to source, God, life, spirit, however he relates to it. Because this is not about the regurgitation or living under uh, somebody else's dogmatic ideals, but really clarifying and forming that connection of what is his truth, what is his connection to this larger force of this universe. And he cultivates that connection, explores that connection through his life, which roots into a sense of purpose, spiritual purpose, what have you. Like, why is he here? Why are you here? What are you doing with this life? And with that, what are you like? What are you willing to channel your life force energy into? And if it really came down to it, what would you be willing to die for? This is the evolved masculine.
Dang, that's potent and beautiful. And yeah,
So the one thing I want to say about this though is that it, it's not meant to be something that you measure yourself up against and then beat yourself up for all the ways in which you fail to be some new ideal. It I view it as a lighthouse. It is a beacon to help guide the journey. I am not the 100% embodiment of the evolved masculine 100% of the time. I make mistakes. I fall down, but it beckons me forward. It reminds me. It helps guide my path. I get myself back up, recognize me like, oh wait, is this who I want to be? No, that's not. Here, let me refocus, recommit, and head back in that direction. And doing that over the course of years, yes, of course, I am that far more than I was before I intentionally started that journey. And I'm
yeah,
still walking.
I totally agree. And I think especially as men, it's so easy to get into this loop of comparison, self-criticism, self-shaming, and even on this like spiritual, personal, evolutionary trajectory. um, we can compare ourselves to others, we can compare ourselves to some ideal that's really ultimately unattainable. And I think what you're speaking of is like this is your most actualized expression of being, or your higher self. And and yes, there's moments where you nail it, like, there, I got it, that was that sweet spot. And then there's moments where you fail. And I think part of that evolved masculine that I've learned and had to work with a lot is loving myself even when I fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
those are almost the most important moments.
Yeah.
um,
I think that was another reason why I wrote my book the way that I didn't necessarily realize at the time as I was writing it, is that it was extremely cathartic. And there was a deepening of self love and self acceptance through the process of writing and publishing this book.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It seems like it was a journey in and of itself, and it probably helped you to like really integrate everything that you've learned over the years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Very much so.
I'd love for you to share a little bit about, some of these qualities that you spoke of, which, depending on where a man is at in his life, like, it might feel like a high bar to set. And if you could pick one of those things that represent the evolved masculine, like, what have you done to practice cultivating those states, or that way of being in the world?
Um, my hesitation is the fact that the true answer is so many different things.
Yeah.
And um and that's why I wrote a 300-page book on it. And the part two of the book is Lessons of the Evolved Masculine, which is about 12, I think, chapters of these different lessons that I had to learn on my path of trying to figure out what kind of man I wanted to be. And most of those figuring outs were through getting it horribly wrong first, and then feeling the pain of getting it wrong and needing to find a better way. If to answer your question directly, I would say a very powerful piece for me was cultivating a more grounded presence. Um, Before I started intentionally walking this path, I I don't think I really had any groundedness or presence. I lived in my head. My energy was erratic all the time.
So pause there for a second, because we got guys following here. I just love for
Yep,
you guys to just put your hand up or like do an emoji. Like, do you find yourself in your head a lot? Like, just to kind of get a sense of where guys are
great
at.
question.
Yeah, and go ahead. I just wanted to invite a little more.
Yeah, yeah, interaction's always good too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see some of these comments, but they
It's
give me
hard.
a
It
window
kind of
like
just
this one.
disappears in a second. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I saw somebody saying they pumped to dive into my book and love that.
yeah,
I'd
yeah,
love to hear your feedback when you're done with it.
yeah.
Um, the Yeah, so cultivating that grounded presence. I lived so much in my head. My energy was erratic. Uh, in relationship, wherever she would go emotionally, I would just get swirled up in that emotion. If if she'd get triggered or angry, I would immediately get triggered and angry back. If she got sad, I would end up being sad with her. If she would orgasm, I would end up orgasming. My sexual energy would get swirled up right into or through it as well, and including just before. Uh, uh, that grounded presence to me, well, in some ways, we're speaking about two different pieces that just work together very well as well: groundedness and presence.
Hmm.
The presence is getting out of your head, being fully in this moment, here, now. Your five senses are powerful tools for that: sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell. I'm like, what I miss. When you are deeply in your senses, you are not in your mind chatter. And it really is only from that place of presence that you're truly engaged with life. It's from that place of presence that real intimacy and real passion end up taking place. They don't happen in your mind. They happen here, now. Likewise, when we're engaging with the world, I mean, you ever had these experiences where, like, well, where you're so caught up in your mind, it's almost like you missed what was happening around you. Um, or B, where you create also just stories around what's happening, what's going to happen, that ends up causing you all sorts of anxiety or suffering that actually none of it actually ended up happening the way that you thought anyway. So that cultivation of that deeper presence took a lot of intentional effort, and it continues to take effort. It's a different flavor. It is easier for me to do so now because I have that blueprint in my system now.
Yeah. So on presence, I have my own answers to this, but like, what,
I'd love
as
to
far
hear.
as like a practice that might help a man develop some more presence in his life. What?
Yeah, one that I have the men that I work with do that you could institute right now would be to take your. Oh, I was looking for my phone. You're recording. Uh, take your phone or watch if you have one of those, and set an alarm to go off uh, once an hour during your waking hours. So that's, let's say you're up from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., for example. Um, every hour on the hour, your alarm goes off. And to take 1 minute once an hour for 1 week to practice presence. During that 1 minute, you can do a minute of presence. I believe in you. It's called micro practice. Um, the breath is an incredibly powerful tool, and your senses is the other powerful tool. So in that moment, just if you are able to stop what you're doing, especially early on in this type of a practice, and slow down, deepen that breath. That tends to help focus and quiet the mind more, and tune into your sight. Notice little details around you that maybe you wouldn't have noticed. Tune into your sense of hearing. What's in your environment? What little sounds? tune into your taste. Maybe there's something that you'd been eating that still kind of has aftertaste in here. Maybe it's sort of, it's like a nothing, but it is something you can notice and feel even right now. There's some sort of taste in your mouth, or hell, carry something with you and pop it in your mouth during those times, just to tune into that sensation. Likewise, the smells in the air, and of course your sense of feeling. So this can be anything from sensations internally in your body, places of tension, places of relaxation, the feeling of the ground beneath your feet, the weight of gravity drawing you to the earth, the feeling of more subtle sensations, the feeling of your clothing on your skin, hair as it touches your face, the breath as it moves through your body. So you can cycle through those relatively quickly to get it all in a minute, but you don't. That's not the point. The point is to be in focused presence for that minute. So if you'd prefer, you could spend one of those minutes focused around your sight and your breath, always with the breath. Hour later, noticing and putting all of your attention to your sense of smell, and cycling through these across your day. But if you spend 1 minute once an hour for 1 week focused on cultivating presence, you'll have a different baseline than you did at the start of the week.
I love that. Yeah, I kind of followed along with you as you were speaking, and I feel more present just tuning into those senses. And one other thing that I wanted to notate that I notice even as you're talking is, and this is a big one for me, and I think a lot of men can work on this, is just slowing down, pausing, taking breaks to just drop in. A lot of times we're just in go mode and trying to get shit done. Part of the masculine wiring is like getting to the end of something, right? And so even notice yourself trying to get through that 1 minute of practice. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so even on this call, I know some of you guys might be in your car or at work, wherever. See if you can just take this time, like take this as an invitation to drop in and really, as you're listening to us, like feel what's occurring in your body while this conversation is going on, and just seeing if that can allow things to even sink on a deeper level.
Yeah, I'm gonna just read through quickly these titles of the lessons of the evolved masculine, because I think that and it just goes a step deeper into answering that question.
Yeah, I love that.
It's powerful vulnerability. Confront the wounds around your masculinity and distrust of other men. Break free from the prison of homophobia. Ground and connect to your body. Cultivate deep presence. Choose to be powerful. Be a man of integrity. Protect the feminine. Choose to forgive your father. Master your emotions. Make peace with your anger. Open your heart even when it hurts. Form right relationship to money. Devote yourself to a larger purpose. And find your unique connection to something greater than yourself.
Yeah, those are juicy. That would transform somebody's life. All of those.
Yeah, and so again, within each of those, I share. I mean, here's like the teacher and the lesson around it, and then also here's kind of my journey of figuring that out and figuring out my relationship to those statements. And may that help you in deepening your own connection to those statements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Destin, one thing that I'm particularly curious about, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, is you're a new father. How old, you have a daughter now?
Yeah, she's 2.
Yeah, 2. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm curious how that has changed your perspective as a man, your choice of how you're moving through the world, how it's, and maybe even how it's impacted your relationship, and how you need to then adapt as a new father, being in an intimate relationship with a woman.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I remember when we first started to get to know one another, you were already a father for a number of years. And, this is an aspect that I wasn't speaking to. And quite honestly, I didn't really understand, even to whatever degree I thought I understood. I had no clue. Fatherhood is definitely a rite of passage and an initiation. And one that I don't think one can really understand until you're in the experience. I certainly didn't. Um, it's changed me. It's it challenged me. It continues to challenge me. There's so many of the cliches are so true. It's that yeah, every day I'm challenged in a new way, and every day my heart is burst open in a new way. Uh, both. I on one level I understand why some men bail, um, because it is so friggin' intense. And at the same time, like they have no idea, no real understanding of what they're missing because it's so incredible. It's so incredible, including all the ways of choosing every day to show up. And how to show up is amazing. It's the ways in which it's strengthened me, the way in which responsibility, which is something that I know that some men really struggle with, uh, as it is. Responsibility is challenging, can be challenging to take on great responsibility, and fatherhood and being a husband, both can carry, and running a business, each can carry enormous responsibility, but it also, like, it expands you, like you become more and capable of more through taking on that responsibility. um, I would like to see a lot more support for men, particularly in that transition into fatherhood. I don't think we have anywhere near enough. And our whole nuclear family, or single fatherhood for that matter, or single motherhood certainly for that matter, just it doesn't set us up for success. It's a miracle that we do as well as we do. There's a reason why there's that whole phrase of "it takes a village to raise a child." Like we need far more support. It takes such an enormous amount of energy to really raise children well, and I'm constantly learning. I don't. I'm finding my way to speak about it. I've been a little slow to, because I feel like I've been very much in my process of figuring out how to do this. And parts of it, especially that first year, were really hard for me. I I I was just, it's ego death. It's like so much of how I knew my life gone.
Mhm.
Gone. And it's like, all right, so thankfully I've been through ego death before. I've learned that the more you struggle against it, the more you try to cling to how things were, the more painful or more it is, the more suffering you experience, the more you're able to just turn in the direction of the change, embrace the change, and just focus on how do I surf this new wave coming in. The you know the more enjoyable it is, the greater success you have with it. But God, there are times where it's really challenged by that shift. But if you focus on what you're losing, it hurts. If you focus on what is here and what's coming, wow, so much, so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. And there's so many big life lessons in there, and I think one of the biggest ones for me when I became a father, it was really my first sense of like real purpose in life when I became a father. Like, oh, there's this other being that I now am responsible to love and to serve, and
Mm.
um, absolutely a part of me needed to die to be able to do that, and continues to need to. And my daughter's now 14, and there's a whole other level of dealing with a young feminine being, um, teenage feminine being. A lot of energy there, and so yeah, there's something that I really relate to, having a larger purpose that's beyond myself, that's helped me to actually break free of a lot of my neuroses in a way, because I've had something more important than my own neuroses to focus on. And
That's a really good point you're making there.
yeah, and it's been the same thing for me in having another purpose now, which is the work that I'm doing. And it's very easy for I know a lot of guys to get like self-obsessed and kind of just stay stuck in that place. But when there's a trajectory, when there's a somewhere to aim for in life, it all that energy can go there, and even that thing itself, in my experience, kind of informs what needs to happen. What are the next steps. A lot of men get stuck in this paralysis of analysis and not knowing what to do, not feeling a sense of purpose. And sometimes it's just like choosing, even if it's a temporary purpose, to like move out of the stagnancy that can really free us a lot from that stuck place of the unknown and the uncertainty.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah. So I'm just having a look at the time here, and I do want to save some time for a little interaction with the people that
Yeah,
are
let's do it.
watching. So I'm going to try to figure this out the best that I can. I know there's people on Instagram. There's been a few questions that have come up, and I don't have my Facebook open, so I'm just going to open that up and just have a look, and hopefully that doesn't create any echo. That's kind of the problem, because
You can,
there's a little bit of a delay. So
if
I'm
you
just
get
turning
over
this
onto
thing
the
off on
Facebook video,
Facebook.
you can like mute
Do
the
you are you
volume.
seeing any questions or anything?
See, all
The
the
video,
usernames joined.
like mute. Are you seeing any questions or anything?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. So on the bottom right there should be a volume for the video.
Right. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I was
And of course, if you're watching this while we're figuring this out, this is a great time for you to type your questions in.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna check also the page to see if there's anything coming through there. There is a question here from a bit earlier from Negus73 on Instagram. And
Mhm.
yeah, I guess it wasn't quite a question, it was more an acknowledgement of your statement. But yeah, he was speaking to the point of how do we be the man we want to see?
Well, I think that starts, if it's the question is how, I think it starts by making a decision, and then clarifying who is that man. So there's a process that I take the men I work with through, and in our new Evolved Masculine membership community that I take men through to really help you crystallize that vision. Who is, who would that man be? That man that you'd like to see in the world. And as you crystallize a vision of who he is, then then it's a matter of practice, trying him on. I have some tools that I work with to help help take it out of the idea realm and ground it into your body. And it's a practice, just like the rest of what we're speaking of. You find easy ways to practice trying him on, practice being him, and then you can start to lean into more difficult ways until you find yourself primarily living as him and having these moments where you pop out of him instead of initially, it may be moments where you're popping into him. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of it's about awareness, right? It looks like we just had a question pop up here, so I'm just gonna try to grab that. So we have somebody with a question here from my Facebook group, and his question is to you, Destin, is around fatherhood. What process have you been going through in the initiation of fatherhood? You may have spoken to that a little already. And what helped you to grieve letting go of being a free man and moving into fatherhood? And my guess is you're still in that a little bit, but if you have any
Say that one more time.
what's helped you to grieve, if it's grief that's come up, letting go of being the free man, the dual sovereign
Yeah.
versus moving into fatherhood and having responsibilities related to that?
Yeah. I think that one is allowing it. Allowing. Ooh, I don't hear you now. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wasn't.
Allowing it, allowing those difficult emotions, allowing myself to feel whatever I'm feeling. Um, that itself has been a big learning process. And the other has been finding ways in connection and communication with my wife so that it isn't just so that I can still be nourished. Yeah, there's this balance that I've been in practice of uh, there's self-sacrifice that having a family requires, but then there's also the nourishment of self that is also required. And if all of our focus is on the self-nourishment at the expense of the family, that can create major problems for the family as well as the self. But if all of the focus is on self-sacrifice, there ends up being a depletion of self over time that usually then also ends up hurting the family as they end up getting the depleted version of you, which too often can also end up bringing forth anger, resentment in its expression as well.
I can relate to that and have been there in the early stages of my daughter's life. And yeah, I think that resentment piece comes up a lot for guys because we are conditioned to be providers, and a lot of men set themselves up to be on constantly, and for a lot of men I think it's very difficult to nourish oneself, to take that time to like, and this, it might mean like turning on a ball game, but generally that's not like deeper nourishment. And I think this is a huge piece for a lot of guys, is learning these ways to really fill our tanks so that we have something to give our families. And this doesn't only apply to having a family, it applies to any kind of relationship, and even our relationship to our work and our livelihood. It's such a crucial piece.
Yeah. I'd like to share or speak to the uncomfortable comment I'm seeing in the on your page, if I may.
Yeah,
Cool.
you're seeing the Essential Man page. Okay, yeah.
Yes, on the Essential Man page on Facebook. Go
Yeah,
over
so go ahead and
and like
just
that page if you're not already. So
read,
I'm very
read it out
big
loud.
on
Yeah.
Part of this process and stepping into my exploration of the evolved masculine as I see him again is in having uncomfortable conversations, being willing to be in discomfort, um, and of course a deep explanation of my own flawed process. So here's an opportunity. uh, this woman Brandy posted, yeah, met him a few times, buddies with my ex, slid his hand under my skirt without the slightest bit of permission, and expected it to be fully okay. Over sexualized, energetic hard on. No, thank you. He's no guru, tell you that much. All right. Rubber meets the road. Um, uh, First of all, Brandy, if you're still there, I'm a I I'm sorry I don't remember this experience that you're speaking of. If you care to share, whether preferably with me personally or otherwise, I'd very happily hear more, receive it more fully. And secondly, if particularly if it happened the way that you describe it, or even if you experience it as such, I'm sorry. Um, I'm assuming that this is 7 to 10 plus years ago, if not more. Um, and Like I said, I don't know specifics around the situation at all, but I'm sorry. Um, I was most likely still very much in my own growth process, making mistakes in that process, trying to figure out how to be, how to be a man, how to be in connection to my sexuality in a way that was both healthy and desired, and in that I made mistakes on my road of figuring that out, and I'm certainly regretful of any ways in which, in my process of trying to figure that out, that I may have harmed or particularly left any sort of negative impact. That sucks. It really does. It sucks for me, and particularly, sucks for those who I may have had negative impact on. If there's anything that I can do at this point to help make right, I don't, I don't need your forgiveness or for you to win you over or anything of that sort. Like, feel about me however you choose to, speak about me however you choose to. Just know that if there's anything that I can do, you know, I'll do what I can.
Your sound just cut out for me for some reason.
Probably the worst time in the world for
Yeah.
the
Well,
worst time in this situation to cut out.
no, you're back now. I just
All
went
right, cool.
for a second. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Your sound just cut out.
Probably the worst time in the world for.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, just thank you for modeling that, Destin. I think that this is a big piece for a lot of guys. Talking about, we all fuck up. We all have histories of learning ways of being in the world that may not have been a healthy expression of masculinity, and many of us are still learning that. And one of the biggest things that we can do is, rather than sweep it under the rug, is to own it, to acknowledge it, to try to make reparations in the best way that we possibly can. And I love the way you modeled that. It may not change the experience for this woman. She may still have her own pain around that. But that's one thing that we can do is for men to start to really stand in who we are intending to become in our lives, and take ownership of where we've shown up in the past that has caused harm or hurt others. And I know that's not an easy thing to look at for a lot of guys. It's not an easy thing to practice, but that's one of the key pieces to really being able to integrate and change. Otherwise, those things just kind of get repressed and turn into more of that kind of shadow behavior.
Yeah.
And Brandy, I don't know if you're still watching this, but you're welcome to comment. If there's anything you need, I'm sure Destin's open to having a conversation with you if you want to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing, and
Yeah.
I also, like I said, I feel like it's things like that are where the rubber meets the road. It's like, all right, you can talk about things, but how do you really show up in those difficult moments or in those uncomfortable moments? That's really the mark of who you are.
Yeah, and I see that, man. I really honor that. It's not an easy thing to step out in a live moment and speak to. So, yeah. Um, so I know we're at time here, and I just want to give you a minute or two to talk about your book, anything that you have up and coming in your world that you want to invite people to check out.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you. And if there's a single thing for you to do, check out the book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, where books are sold. If they don't have it, just tell them you want it. They'll order it for you. Um, and yeah, I've been in this work in one form or another for over 20 years, and uh, it's as much as I could all distilled down uh, into this book for you. You know, you're the reason why I wrote this, to make your path a bit easier. Anything that you can gain from it. There's this great quote from Bruce Lee of take what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. That's really my belief of how I'd like for you to um, use this book. As far as what we're up to, we've just launched the Evolve Masculine membership community. This is a new, like, low-cost monthly subscription model, means to really scale this community to for those who are really drawn and committed to this type of work, to be in deep connection with other men, where I take you through a journey of what I call just so you know, I just got kicked out of the.
Yeah, me too. Me too. On Instagram, maybe there's a time limit on it or something. You know. I can reboot it if you want to finish up on there. And we're still on Facebook.
Your call.
Yeah, let me just do it real quick so you can wrap things up properly. Yeah, so you might have to open up your.
I'm in there now.
There we go. There we go. Okay. All right.
Technology.
Back on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a webinar coming up. Um, um, all about that. But if you go to evolvemasculine.com, there's a place in there to uh, get a 10 minutes, what I call the Evolve Masculine Blueprint. This is kind of a brief transmission of what I view the Evolved Masculine as well as a writing prompt to help you clarify more your vision of your own Evolved Masculine self. And then from there, I'll also send you out information about our upcoming webinar to really dive deeper into that exploration of who is he, who is this man that's yearning to arise from your deepest soul essence, and how do you step into it.
Great. That sounds great. So make sure you guys follow Destin, the Evolved Masculine on Instagram and on Facebook. What?
Destin Gerek on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can. I'll go ahead and post your website once this Facebook, whatever the video gets edited and added. I'll post the details to your website and all that underneath the comment section there.
Sounds great. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me on and being part of this. This is a really great conversation. Again, I love having this type of conversation with another man who's, yeah, as you know, passionate about this type of work as I am, as you know, as committed as you are to walking this path and being of service to others. It really shows and comes across, and certainly makes this whole conversation that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's really great to share it with you, Destin, with so much wisdom. You've done the work, and you're still doing the work, and that's a highly honorable